All right, on this episode of MMA Canada, very excited to be talking to an individual who's going to be competing on Tuff-N-Uff 142, which transpires on March the 14th. And a bantamweight bout is set to go down with Enzo Perez and Isaiah Metituk. And great getting to have Isaiah on the MMA Canada platform today. How's your day going so far, man?
Good man, just finished up a hard strength and conditioning session, got in some rounds, got in some recoveries. So we're all systems go as we get towards the end of camp.
That's awesome to hear. And how does it feel to be in such close proximity to this fight? I mean, less than 2 weeks out as of this recording time. And I feel like there's something, to getting to fight in Las Vegas, fight capital of the world, and on UFC Fight Pass, no less. So can you kind of talk about how all of those factors are making you feel heading into this one?
Honestly, man, it's kind of a double-edged sword. I mean, obviously it's super exciting. I get to go to Las Vegas. I get to be on a massive card for a massive promotion at a, top level venue, and all of that's really cool. But at the end of the day, I'm not just along for the ride. I'm here to drive the car, and I can't lose sight of the mission, which is going in there and finishing Enzo Perez, no matter what stage it is, right? So I've accepted. It's cool. It's obviously a massive opportunity. I get to see the world. I get to hit that next level, but at the end of the day, I still have to remain focused on the task at hand, which is taking out a bad Cuban. So it's something I've just kind of had to put on the back burner, but every now and again it'll kind of hit me like shit, I'm fighting in Vegas on Fight Pass, which is, pretty cool.
Yeah, like maybe something to be appreciative of after the fact,
Mhm.
almost as compared, or as compared rather to creating like extra noise heading in, sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's just it. I've gotten and people don't know, which I understand, but I've gotten so many questions like, "Oh, are you excited for Vegas? Like, what are you gonna do? Like, you're down there. You should go party here after. You should do this." And it's like, yeah, that's all cool and whatever, but I'm down there for business. This isn't a vacation. This isn't a pleasure trip. I'm down there to make it three in a row, and I'm down there to show that I belong on this stage.
And it just seems like such a great time for this to be happening. Like you said, very reputable promotion, UFC Fight Pass, and just what a great 2024 you had to, build that momentum into this opportunity. You got a couple big victories and signed with a big management agency in Canada, and just really seemed like a lot of big life happenings too, like moving cities, gyms, etc. Can you kind of talk about just how, I guess, important and impactful 2024 has been to your overall journey and everything? So it seemed like a
Oh,
big year.
oh man, 2024 was, yeah, what a wild ride. Only had the two fights. I went up two weight classes. I subbed Jesse Bullen under a minute. Had the BTC fight with Noah Crosswell. Honestly, wasn't happy with that performance. I know I got the win, but still, I wasn't super happy with that performance. But regardless, I finally got my first win at 35. I got above 500, which parlayed into me signing with KO Reps and Jeremy Rubin, and then that parlayed into this big opportunity for Tuff-N-Uff. So yeah, 2024 was definitely a game changer, and it really seemed to get the ball rolling.
And did your management company facilitate this opportunity, or how did this opportunity with Tuff-N-Uff specifically come about?
Yeah, no, they got it. We'd been looking for a fight. We had gotten some offers we were considering, and then yeah, one random Tuesday they just sent me this offer. I was on board right away. I texted it to Cole. He was on board, and yeah, next thing you know, we're 2 weeks out, about to go to Vegas and take out another guy on the hit list. So it all is really sequential the way it happened, and I kind of feel like this is just going to be the beginning of a whole new chapter, not only in my professional career, but also just in my life in general.
And something that I thought was cool because you did mention the first W at 135 getting collected there, and just now with wins at bantamweight, featherweight, and lightweight after that campaign. That's quite the impressive feather to have in one's cap. It sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, 55 isn't a weight class I plan to revisit soon. I'm not trying to fight guys like Kyle Prepolek and David Zingane, but I mean, still to have three wins in three different weight classes and finishes, it definitely adds to the legitimacy of my record.
And just even some of the, I guess, ability to overcome variables beyond your control. Just because I was noticing in your last fight, you'd had some issues with Air Canada, which, I feel like that's not uncommon for people who are on that airline and everything. I've had my encounters too. You didn't get into town until 12 hours before weigh-ins, but, still made it work all the same, a hard cut. But just to say, it seems like you've gotten, not that you've been bad at this per se, but it seems like you're in a good pocket as far as like accounting for certain variables that are beyond your control and still, making it work and generating a good result.
Oh man, the fight game is like a toxic relationship. You never know what you're gonna get. It could be great, it could be horrible, it could be in between. I said in my last interview, and I'll say it again, I'm a road dog. Every pro fight I've had has been on the road, so I've just learned to adapt and overcome, and I don't let anything phase me anymore. I know whatever's going to happen is going to happen. I can't control outside circumstances, but what I can control is how I react and how I handle them. And Ontario was the proof. I mean, it was a tough flight. It was a tough weight cut. Circumstances weren't really working in my favor. Whatever. At the end of the day, nobody gives a shit about that. They just care if you go in there and you win. And I managed to get the W despite maybe the circumstances not necessarily being optimal. So I can just chalk it up to a learning experience. And, as I hit this higher level with, Tough-N-Uff and Fight Pass and Vegas and all of that, it's invaluable to have. So in a way, it's almost a blessing in disguise.
And I guess that is an interesting sort of thing because you are right in as far as like how much you have been a road warrior in your pro career, but almost like a best of both worlds kind of scenario because you had so much experience cutting your teeth as an amateur in Grand Prairie and whatnot on that XFFC circuit. So it seems like you've got that competitive experience with, both of those looks and everything.
Yeah, I definitely miss having the opportunity to fight at home. It's nice getting to sleep in your own bed. It's cool getting to have all your friends and family there and whatnot. But look, this is the fight game. If you can't handle it, then the outside circumstances, like maybe a bad flight or you're in a weird city or you don't know the language or whatever, then it's probably not the game for you, right? And at the end of the day, too, even though fighting is and winning is the number one priority, I still get to see the world and not even pay for it. So it's definitely a cool experience. And regardless of how far I go in this and if I do achieve my goals, it's a cool bucket list thing I get to check off, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And something that I feel like I'd also be remiss if I didn't get some insights on because you had some very prolific figures in your corner last time out with, Justin Bruckmann and Cole Smith offering some great advice and everything. What was it like kind of having those guys in your corner there? They seemed like they'd be, great individuals to have in that kind of capacity, to say the least.
Oh yeah, like Cole Smith is like the older brother I never had, man. I mean, I've been training off and on with him for about 3 years until I moved down here to be with him full time. Um, the guy's treated me like family since day one. Obviously, he's competed and won at the absolute highest level, and he's just an absolute wealth of knowledge and the amount and care that he puts into not only myself but every one of his fighters is just it's unmatched. So yeah, having him in my corner moving forward is just it progressed me to the next level. And then Justin Bruckmann, who I consider my Ontario coach, I'm actually 2-0 with him in my corner. He is just such a great human being. They were only flying down one cornerman. Plane tickets are really expensive, so I was kind of not really wanting to have to dish out the extra $1,200 or whatever crazy figure it was to fly down a corner. Um, Ethan Harrod, who's a friend of mine and was actually on the card as well, was fighting. So I messaged Justin. I said, "Hey man, like I'm going to be fighting on this card. I would love for you to be a second in my corner." And didn't even hesitate twice. Showed up, wrapped my hands, helped Cole corner me, helped myself get this victory. And he's somebody I'm super blessed and fortunate to have on my side, even if he's not in my immediate proximity.
Yeah, just such a prolific figure. Like I know people understandably often talk about, his fight with GSP, but the fact that he was a guy who in like a modern context would probably fit in that description of more of like a natural lightweight, like getting a victory over David Loiseau early in his career who fought for the UFC middleweight title. So just incredible stuff. A Shudo veteran as well, just invaluable information and experience to have behind you there. That's cool, man.
Oh yeah, and I mean, you look at the guys who are coming out of his gym as well. I mean, James Clark, Justin Condi, Ethan Harrod, his amateurs. No, he's an absolute dictionary of knowledge when it comes to MMA. I mean, the guy got his black belt in judo in like I believe it was 4 years. It would have been sooner, but like he still to this day holds the Canadian record for fastest judo black belt. So the amount of knowledge that that guy has and that he's willing to share is great. And he's somebody I'm really thankful that I've made a connection with.
And you always struck me as a guy that's really been like a sponge for all of that kind of stuff. Like Bill Mahood, someone that offered great insights to you at Champion Gym over the years. And I love seeing the stuff you're doing with Dennis Kang nowadays. So just great stuff, man, learning from some of the absolute legends and pioneers of the sport.
Yeah, for being a kid from a small town, I sure have gotten to train with a who's who of Canadian MMA. I mean, as you mentioned, Bill Mudd and Dennis Kang, who both fought in the UFC and are both absolute legends and pioneers of Canadian MMA. Dan Kayak, who still to this day I say is the best striker in Canadian MMA. Definitely should have been in the UFC. Matt Kwan, who in my opinion is the best grappler in the lower mainland. The guy's just an absolute wizard when it comes to anything related to jiu-jitsu. Now I'm with Cole Smith, who, man, give us 5 years, we're going to be the best team in Canada. I mean, the guy's, spent time at all of the top gyms in the world. Like I mentioned before, he fought in the UFC. He's won in the UFC. He's been a regional champion. He's fought in Thailand. Like, you can't really do more than that guy's done. So yeah, I've definitely gotten to train with and acquire knowledge from the best Canada has to offer.
Yeah, and someone else that is kind of interwoven into your training experiences there in a certain sense, just being part of his, jujitsu lineage and all, Bibiano Fernandes.
Mhm.
I'd be curious to get your thoughts on his recent retirement, beating Kevin Bellingon yet again, someone he's had multiple fights with under the one championship banner. Like, what were your thoughts on, I guess, just the performance and seeing Bibby retire in the one circle relatively recently?
Honestly, it was great. I'm not as close to Bibby these days. I mean, he's an hour and a half, 2 hours away, but obviously he's somebody I came up under. I have my purple belt under. I've trained with. He's coached me, and he's the highest level guy we have in Canada, or one of them, right? I mean, the guy's an absolute legend. He's an absolute stud. He's been at the top of the division for years. And, he's also just a really great, solid human being who treats, no matter how far he's made it, he treats everybody the same and he treats you no different. So he's a great human being, a great fighter. And to see him, get to go with a win over a guy that he has a history with is great. And also go it at the right time. A lot of us stick around too long. We end up like Chuck Liddell, where it's knockout after knockout, and you're kind of pushed into retirement. So not only to see him get the win, but see him go it on his own terms with his health and his brain intact is just great to see.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely beautiful, man. Just such a, prolific legacy in the sport as you kind of outlined there. But just as you kind of carve out your own legacy in the sport and continue your own story, I'm curious to get your thoughts on your opponent, Enzo Perez, like in terms of just his predominant skill set and just overall resume, because you struck me as a guy who would be kind of getting into it a little bit as far as like seeing what's going on with him. And from what I'm seeing, a Tuff-N-Uff veteran in his amateur days, but also some experience with circuits like XFC, Combate, and everything like that. So just, yeah, curious to get your thoughts on the resume and skill set of Enzo Perez here.
He's definitely, I would say he's the most legitimate guy I've fought. He's well rounded. He like he'll brawl, he'll bang, but he also does have a propensity to like to grapple and take the back. I definitely see holes in his game that I can exploit, as cliche as that is, and I definitely see a path to victory in this fight that you will see unfold in a couple of weeks. But man, make no mistake about it. I mean, this has been the hardest training camp of my life because it has to have been. The guy's legitimate. He's from a super good gym. He's been training and fighting for a long time, and to go out there and get a victory that really feels earned over a legitimate guy is going to be a huge feather in my cap.
And what's the nature of the, I guess, arrangement with Tuff-N-Uff? Is it a singular fight contract, a multi-fight contract? Just kind of curious on that.
No, it's just a single fight contract. I mean, if things go to plan, obviously, I'd love to be back and make that my home for the time being. But yeah, as of right now, I'm just kind of looking at this like it's an audition, just a single fight, see how it goes, and take it from there.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably one of those situations where, depending on what happens here, they could be inspired to lock you into more of like a multi-fight agreement. Or is that something that you would want to? Because I know some fighters that I talk to almost enjoy the dynamic of single fight contracts, just like keep options open and stuff like that.
It's kind of 50-50, right? Definitely it is nice to be able to just kind of take whatever, whenever. But then again, it's also nice to have something stable, and I know I'm going to get X amount of fights, X amount of offers a year. I know where I'm going to be fighting, I know who I'm dealing with. So I'm kind of either or, right? If I like how everything goes, I mean, they pay me well, they treated me well so far. I think it's great exposure. I definitely wouldn't be against signing a deal with them at all. But in the meantime, if they don't want to have me back, then that's fine. It just bolsters my name and it gets me more offers, right? So it's kind of just something I'm going to go with the flow and see how it goes.
Yeah, and also it's probably tied to the sentiment you were talking about before, where it's like this is a business trip. I'm not thinking about, going to like a certain club per se. Like maybe you're not thinking of the contractual dynamic in that sense, because it's like, hey, if I don't, have an impressive performance against this Enzo guy anyway, it's not going to inform the kind of trajectory I want anyway. So maybe kind of locked into that sort of idea also.
Yeah, it's funny. Everybody's always asking me, how do you feel? How do you feel? Well, honestly, I don't really feel anything this camp. At the end of the day, it's the Ultimate Fighting Championship we're trying to get to, not the Ultimate Feeling Championship. So I'm just super locked in. I'm not feeling any kind of, emotional response towards my training or after training. I'm just taking it day by day, and I'm just super locked in and super focused on just daily improvements and getting that 1% better each day. So yeah, we'll see how it all goes, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just interesting because you were kind of talking about, just your journey and everything like that, and these goals you want to accomplish in the sport. Like, I thought it was cool seeing a post you had a few weeks ago talking about how by the end of 2025, your name is going to read champion and you'll have a big gold belt. So I just love hearing that. Like, I feel like if you have the rate of activity and the kind of performances you're looking to have, I feel like that's definitely within your grasp. Like, how exciting is that sort of a thing? I mean, obviously, we're talking about being very locked into this moment here, but I mean, I always love those throwback photos you have where you're like a younger lad and you've got like the WWE championship and the replica belt. I mean, that would be kind of a cool thing for young Isaiah to eventually one day, see the present incarnation of yourself holding a belt at some point.
Hitting in Vegas was definitely one of those, like, younger me wouldn't believe this is happening moments. Yeah, for sure. So there is that aspect to it, and I don't lose sight of that. I will admit I am a sentimental person, and that does kind of strike a chord with that side of myself. But more so than anything, it's just motivating, right? I'm not in this to just say I fought. I'm not in this to just be a regional journeyman. I'm in this to collect scalps, collect belts. I want the biggest fights, the biggest paychecks, the whole 9 yards. So even more so than maybe it eliciting a response of emotion, like, excitement or happiness or anything in that context, it's just motivating, man. It's just, win this, get to 5-3, three in a row, then 6-3, 7-3, and not to say that to look past Enzo at all, because that would be incredibly foolish of me. But long term, that is the sole motivation right now.
Yeah, I know, definitely hear where you're coming from. I feel like the sport has just like, I don't know, been such like a guiding force for you in a certain sense. Cause like I remember some of the interviews we've done over the years at Champion Gym and talking about how at like different points you didn't have housing available to you, but we're still so focused on this journey, or like even like couch surfing a bit, living with Jesse Arnett for a bit, and just still being like so concurrently locked in to this path. It must be a good time in a sense because I mean you're very focused and grounded, but also you've had, quite a journey getting to this. So it just seems like a cool confluence of things, like just grateful for the journey, but like very locked in and focused on this next chapter, it seems.
Of course, definitely. It's cool to see, like you said, sleeping in my car, sleeping on coaches, going broke chasing this dream, which I feel like if you want to be a fighter, you have to accept that's going to happen at some point. Just going through the ringer, I've kind of been through it all, right? And right now, life is good. Squamish is beautiful. I've got a great team financially. I'm doing well. So it's kind of nice to see some of those older distractions and older all of older thorns in my side go away, and now life is good, which makes training better, it makes fighting better, and it's just it's been a very positive progression to see.
Yeah, and now you've got Squamish Motorsports repping you and sponsoring you, so some
Yes,
great
sir.
moments. Yeah.
Yeah, that was huge, man. They're a great company. My training partner Mo Huss, he's been around forever. He's never fought, but everybody in the gym loves him because he's always down to help. He's always down to be a body or give you good rounds, whatever you need. He worked there. He put it in their ear that, hey, you should sponsor this guy. And yeah, I went with met with them. We did a sponsorship deal for this fight. They want to be a long-term sponsor moving forward, and I'm super happy to just rep such a great company that's ran by such great people.
Yeah, well, I love to hear that it's such a good dynamic there. I was excited when I saw you had, made the announcement and everything, but it's always great getting to talk to you ahead of these fights by Isaiah. This definitely seems like a big one, so definitely wanted to have you on the MMA Canada platform to talk a bit about that. So thank you so much for the time for sure, but I also figured I'd give you the floor in case there was any final parting thought you were wanting to add as we're kind of wrapping up here, man. I do appreciate you making the time again to reiterate.
Yeah, man. Huge shout out to my gym, Roundhouse MMA. Um, Goes without saying, they've got me the best I've ever been. Shout out my strength and conditioning coach, my nutritionist, Sonata Performance and Wellness. My body's never felt so intact and in shape, and he's just been an absolute wizard with getting me where I need to be physically, weight wise, mentally, all of that. And yeah, man, if you want to see an absolute bloodbath banger of a war, you know where to go. March 14th, Tough-N-Uff 142, live on UFC Fight Pass, Metituk versus Perez. It's going to be a war, and at the end of the day, my hand's going to come out raised.
Yeah, it's gonna be a great one for the live fans in Las Vegas. But as you said, available internationally via UFC Fight Pass. I'm definitely excited to check out this Enzo Perez fight, man. Stoked to have you on the MMA Canada platform today. I'll be checking out the fight when it goes down. But until then, man, all the best with the remaining stretch of your preparations and just, yeah, you have a good rest of your night as well, man.
Yeah, you as well, brother. Thank you for having me.